And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, episode 129. Going to recap the NFL trade deadline, Week 8 action, look ahead to Week 9, the usuals here on the football edition of Benched with Bubba. In order to do so, I will be joined by a member of Razzball.com. You can find him on Twitter at Razzball_MB. He's been on the show before, and we love having him back. Matt Bowe, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me back. Good to link up with your listeners again as we did this summer. So, there's plenty to talk about. I'm glad I hopped on this week.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you hit me up because as I started putting the outline together, I'm like, we talked about like half these guys earlier this year, and I think things have changed quite a bit on some of these guys.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But let's just kick it off with the trade deadline because I'm a diehard baseball fan. I love my football. I don't put it on the back burner by any means, but baseball has a trade deadline. The NFL just says they have a trade deadline most years. This year, the NFL made trades, Matt, and three big ones went down today. We know Amari Cooper. The Raiders robbed the Cowboys last week, but we got Demaryius Thomas. Some say he's washed. Some say he isn't. Goes to the Houston Texans for a 4th-round pick, and they swap 7th-round picks. Will Fuller's put on the IR with his ACL. Cootie's injured. What's your thoughts on DT in Texas?
Okay, so Demaryius Thomas, I'm not necessarily in the he's washed camp. I just don't think he has gotten the opportunities with the quarterbacks with quarterback play in Denver the last couple of years. Case Keenum has been okay, but I mean, he's not playing with Peyton Manning anymore. And I think playing with Deshaun Watson is a good opportunity for him. The problem is rest of season. I'm not totally sold on it because, as you know, it takes a while for these players to learn the playbook. It's completely different. He's playing with a different set of teammates, but I believe that he can have some value this year. I just think it won't be until fantasy playoff time necessarily. And I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is there too, so that zaps his value quite a bit. So I think he's a flex consideration later on in the season. I think he can win some matchups for you if you slot him in on the right week.
Yeah, I'm glad you hit on the Hopkins part because I had a follower on Twitter ask me, well, that takes away all my Hopkins value. I said, why would you say that?
No, it never would.
Yeah,
nothing. No one is taking away from Hopkins value.
Exactly. I'm like, A, he's the number one, and B, they got it done with Hopkins, Fuller, and Cootie all producing. Like there wasn't an issue because they don't have a tight end and they don't really have a receiving running back for the most part. Mm-hmm. So these are the receiving options. That's just the way it is. That's why they went out and traded for a guy when Fuller went down with his ACL. Now, say maybe Kiki's injured right now. He still might play this week, assuming he gets back to full health, which is a big assumption in the middle of the season. Would you rather have DT or Kiki for the rest of the way?
I think probably Kiki, because I think being the slot receiver, this could open things up for him. I mean, they have two guys that can help out on the underneath. And as you know, I mean, Kiki ran a pretty quick 40 at the combine. So I think they have the opportunity to get him downfield a little bit. I mean, he's not going to be Will Fuller by any means, but I think he can, somewhat cover that role. And I mean, they have to improve on his 9.3 yards per reception this year. I mean, that's not what they brought him in for, to be an underneath guy. So I think it's a good opportunity for him. So if I were going to take a flyer on either of them, it'd be Kiki.
I like that. Let's look at Denver real quick. Obviously, it opens up a big spot for a draft pick this year in Cortland Sutton. Emmanuel Sanders, he's been really good. He's banged up right now. I'm not worried about that so much. He's going to get his. But Cortland's a big-time receiver. What do you think with Cortland right now? Because he's the buzz right now.
Yeah, I mean, you got to put him in your lineup now. I mean, with DT out of the way, it opens things up for more targets. I don't see him getting less than 5 catches per game. I think this is a guy who can be competing for 100 yards a game, and I think he can help them out in the red zone too. I mean, he's been pretty – with the lack of absolute production from a fantasy standpoint, just watching him, he's been very impressive. I mean, he did get 90 yards last week, so I guess you could kind of consider that his breakout. But this is a guy that it's just obvious that he's going to break out in the second half.
Yeah, well, I guess it'll be fun to see how that all turns out, and we get to see it right away because Houston faces Denver this weekend. So lots to like there.
What kind of reception do you think DT will get?
In Denver, they shouldn't be mad at him at all. This has
not
him.
At all.
Yeah, this is all I don't want to completely say poor management practices has gotten this far, but pretty much poor management has gotten this far, and they're going to have to do a lot more blowing up to get better sooner than later.
I hope they give him a standing O. I mean, this is a Super Bowl winning guy. I mean, he did a lot for this organization, and pretty cool story too. So I'm sure they'll retire his jersey in Denver when it's all said and done.
It was when the Super Bowl was in San Francisco, and it was them versus the Panthers. They'll give media passes to anybody for media day. So I was at the media day, and the first person I got to talk to was DT. I stayed at his because everyone was getting ready to go to Peyton's. I'm like, well, there's no one standing here, so this works out perfectly. And so I talked to him for a couple of minutes, and one of the questions I asked him was, being a Georgia Tech guy and everything, what was it like with Calvin Johnson? Because Calvin Johnson just retired right before that happened. So that, like, he showed at that point, he showed how much he respected the game, which was cool to see from a guy that was super talented. And then that was right when the news came out that his mom was going to finally come see him play a game and all that stuff. So he was a very humble, very awesome kid. He was fun to meet.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he finishes strong with Houston. I mean, he's 30 years old. He'll be 31 by the time the season's over. I hope he has a couple more years in him, and I love Deshaun Watson. I'm not sure if you knew this, but I'm a huge Deshaun Watson fan. So I'm looking forward to seeing if this can work out for both of them.
Well, and you mentioned it that way because, we can kind of – we'll bring this topic up now and we'll bring it up later. Like, Lamar Miller's looked really good this week or in the last couple of weeks. He's actually been the guy. It's almost like they were trying to punish him to motivate him in a weird way. And, Deshaun Watson's going to keep getting healthier. I listened to a guy a couple of weeks ago. The whole bus thing was to help his lungs grow, and he's got 2 home games before he has to travel, so on and so forth. Like, there's supposed to be a lot of going to be just fine, Thomas. They're still towards the top of a very bad division. They could sneak into the playoffs with a pretty decent defense. Is there anything to really get excited about there with Houston?
With Houston, I mean, they're not one of the top 3 teams in the division. I mean, they're gonna host the Saturday ESPN wildcard game. I mean, they're gonna host the 4-5 game. Hopefully, it's I think they'll win a playoff game, and I think they're gonna run into New England or Kansas City and get completely sauced. But it'll be good to see Deshaun Watson play in a playoff game that he can win to start it off, and I think it'll be good for his career. I think it'll be a good experience because he wasn't around last year when they made the playoffs.
For sure. Let's talk about another big trade. We already joked about Amari Cooper going for a number 1 draft pick. Well, now a receiver that's been much better than Amari Cooper in recent years. Golden Tate leaves Detroit, heads to the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles for a 3rd-round draft pick. This has all the feelings of A, Aguilar's in trouble, but B, this makes a very good team much, much better.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is normally I'd say that guy's fantasy value would be zapped, kind of like we did with DT when he's moving teams mid-season. But Golden Tate is going into the perfect situation. He's going into a situation where a coach is going to be very excited to use the skills that he has. I mean, they have the number 1 wide receiver in Alshon Jeffrey already, who is, just the possession guy. I mean, you can just pepper him with targets, and they have Zach Ertz, who they can do the same thing with. And with Golden Tate, they can stretch the field, or I mean, they can hit him with the screen passes, and it's just another weapon for a coach who just doesn't need another weapon, but he's going to use it correctly, So I love it for Golden Tate. I think it's a slight uptick in his value. And if it's not a slight uptick, I don't think he's losing any value. I think he's still someone that you're going to slot into your lineup every week. And it helps that he has the bye week this week to learn the playbook and get familiar with his teammates.
Definitely. And Alshon Jeffrey, since he's come back, has played very, very well there. Zach Ertz is just a monster. How do you think that affects those two guys having Tate join that offense?
I think it enhances it. I think it's gonna do good things for Carson Wentz. Going to be great for confidence. I mean, he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and top quarterbacks, when they get a new weapon, they figure it out. They don't have a running game. They're just rotating backs. I mean, last week Adams got the majority of the carries, and I think no one even got 10 carries. Carson Wentz didn't throw a touchdown pass to a wide receiver last week. So you want to add a wide receiver to this. I mean, you don't want Nelson Aguilar as your second wide receiver, as good as he has played the last couple of years. But this only helps. I think it can help Alshon's value. Zach Ertz, I mean, he's going to get his. So I think it'll be good things all around for Philadelphia.
All right, let's take a quick look at the Detroit side of things. Marvin Jones finally had his coming out party last week. We've been waiting for it. Like DFS players, as the prices dropped, has waited week in and week out. He finally did it. But the guy I really love, and I think everybody else loves, is Megatron Jr. and Kenny Golladay. And now it's going to be the Jones-Golladay show for the most part. What are your thoughts on the Detroit passing game?
I love it for Golladay, that's for sure. We saw earlier in the season that he had some breakout games. He's ready to be a starting wide receiver in this league. He's ready to be a big producer in your fantasy lineup. It was a shame to see the last couple of weeks he just wasn't used that much, and I think this is a good way for Detroit to add a draft pick and be able to use Kenny Golladay in the way that he should be used. Marvin Jones showed last week he still has a lot in the tank. I mean, I love it for Detroit. As far as Matthew Stafford, I don't like it for him because, I mean, anytime you lose a weapon like Golden Tate, it's not doing anything real positive for you. So as far as, overall yardage and red zone opportunities, I mean, it can't help him. So if it hurts anyone, it hurts Matthew Stafford, but it helps the two receivers.
All right, let's talk about a trade that really confused me. I was literally eating lunch, and I'm a Dolphins fan, unfortunately, but my second team would be the Packers with my thing, and I see them trade Ty Montgomery to the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm thinking, okay, he pissed his coach off, he fumbled the ball, he got traded. That's kind of strange, and I know they got a loaded backfield, so okay, but they traded him for a 7th-round draft pick in 2020. Not next season, 2020. This is like the biggest just leave the locker room thing I've ever seen. I don't like it for either side. What's your thoughts here?
So the report was that he threw a fit on the sideline because he was pulled out of the game previous to the kickoff return. He slammed his helmet down, had some choice words for I don't know who. And I read that he was told to take a knee. And he brought it out anyway. So, I mean, he went against what the coaches wanted. And, I mean, you just can't have that on your team. They don't need him. They have Jamal Williams. They have Aaron Jones, who is finally getting some love in the backfield now. He should see an uptick in carries now that they don't have to worry about giving Ty Montgomery the ball at all anymore. I like it for Baltimore. It's not good for Buck Allen, that's for sure. It's not going to affect. I don't think it affects Alex Collins at all. I mean, he seems to be the shoe-in guy in first and second down territory early in the games. He scores most of his touchdowns in the first quarter. So, I mean, most of his production comes at the beginning of the game. He's kind of the tone setter. So I don't see this affecting Alex Collins at all. But I see it being a big problem for Buck Allen. And Buck Allen, I mean, he gets in the end zone, but it's just kind of because he's the guy who's in, So he's never been a good running back, but he's always had opportunities. So yeah, I think it's bad for Buck Allen if Ty Montgomery can pick up the playbook. But I mean, you never know with guys like Ty Montgomery.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I felt is, Alex Collins has his role. He's going to get, 15 to 20 touches a game, and that's kind of where it goes. And, a couple of weeks, they've actually incorporated him in the passing game. So he's going to be fine. Buck Allen's the one you've seen in recent weeks. He's kind of lost a little bit of his touches. And now you bring a guy like Ty Montgomery, who we've seen be very, very good at the running back position, especially in the passing game. This makes you wonder, really, like you said, is this, Buck Allen, you're going to be relegated to the third on the depth chart here. If basically what I'm asking is if Ty Montgomery's out there and the running back position by this time of the year, almost every position this time of the year, there's a lot of depletion out there. Do you look at a guy like Ty Montgomery for depth on your roster, or are you thinking it's just such a mess in Baltimore, we leave it alone?
Someone asked me that on Twitter earlier today. And I don't think I thought it through enough, because now that I'm thinking about it, he kind of is someone that I want on my roster, because you've seen how creative they've gotten with Lamar Jackson, throwing Joe Flacco out there for receiver so Lamar Jackson can get some snaps. And I can just see them taking Ty Montgomery and moving him around the formations and just seeing if they can find a couple plays that work for him, and maybe he can bust some big plays. So, I mean, 14 and 16 team leagues, I think he is someone that I want to wait and see on my bench. 12 team leagues, I mean, I think he got time because I don't think he's going to make a big impact this week. So, I mean, that's kind of a wait and see in shallow leagues, but in deep leagues, I think he's definitely, if he's out there, he's definitely a pickup. Yeah,
I agree. I could see this being kind of like, what the Chargers are doing with Gordon and Eckler. They're both on the field at the same time. I could see Tymont and Collins on the field at the same time. I could see Montgomery getting some spots in the slot once in a while because, Crabtree and Jones or Brown are playing really well. Snead's having this last 3 weeks have been crazy, but how long is that going to work? We'll see. But I think it opens up some slots too, so it'll be very interesting with Tymont for sure.
Yeah, they'll find a way to use him. It's just a matter of is he going to get more than 3 or 4 touches a game.
One thing I did want to ask, I forgot to put it on the outline, but it's not really an in-depth question. The trade deadline came and went, and we're in week 9. What is going on with Le'Veon Bell?
Well, I mean, he hasn't signed any paperwork, so they just simply can't do anything with him. So, I mean, it's going to be like we thought it was in mid-September. I think he'll be back week 11. This guy is just he's not going to want to spend another year in Pittsburgh, so he's going to report. And, I mean, if he has any little ailment whatsoever, he'll sit. And I think James Conner is probably very valuable for the rest of the season. I think you can probably, even when Le'Veon Bell's back, you can probably count on putting him in your lineup and at least your flex spot until we see what happens with Le'Veon Bell. But he's not playing with his money. I mean, he'll be back week 11, so we make sure he's a free agent next year, and that's just what it's going to be. Pittsburgh's going to go to the playoffs. He's going to have fresh legs for the playoffs. So I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I feel bad for people who took him. I mean, but it's just part of the business. It's part of the football business.
Yeah, I don't blame him for it at all. I said on some show before the season that I don't blame him one bit if he wants to sit out as long as he possibly can, because in this you get one good payday. This is it. So
your investment is your body is your investment when you're in the NFL. And I mean, the average span of the NFL career, I think last time I checked was 2.7 years.
Exactly.
So, I can't say I blame him either.
No. All right, let's recap some week 8 storylines here. Let's kind of flip around the league. One that took place finally after they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers over the weekend on Monday. The Browns first fire head coach Hugh Jackson, which a lot of people expected. And then to the surprise of at least me, because I think they do both, a few hours later they fired Todd Haley as the offensive coordinator. This is very interesting to say the least, but the fantasy football ramifications, what effect do you think this has on this offense that has a lot of weapons and just really isn't gelling the way it should?
Okay. I think that the idea is to get the ball in Duke Johnson's hands a little bit more.
I hope to God that's true.
If you're management and you see a guy producing for you from the slot, in the passing game from the backfield, and you just see Todd Haley and Hugh Jackson completely ignore it. So here's my theory. I think Hugh Jackson last week, he made some comments about wanting to get more involved in the offense. Mm-hmm. And you heard the report that Todd Haley just basically ignored whatever Hugh Jackson said. And I mean, I think they both got fired because they couldn't keep the bad blood between them quiet. I think that's probably a big reason about what happened. I think Hugh Jackson probably wanted to get Duke Johnson a lot more involved. You sign a guy like Jarvis Landry to big money in the over the offseason. I can't remember off the top of my head if he got traded. Did he get traded?
He got traded, yes, but then he got an extension when he was there or something like that.
Right. Yeah. You trade for a guy like Jarvis Landry, and you're just not using him correctly. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's insane. You got to use Duke Johnson. I mean, if you want to give Nick Chubb 18 touches, fine. I mean, the guy busted a 20-yard run last week. He busted a couple 10-yard runs. But you got to disguise it because you saw in the second half last week against Pittsburgh, he was just getting stuffed. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you just got to utilize your guys because you have so much talent on that offense. And, I mean, poor Baker Mayfield. I mean, I hope this is a positive move for Baker Mayfield's career. I hope this team is under the correct direction. And I believe, not ignoring David Njoku, finding a way to give Jarvis Landry the ball, and getting Duke Johnson the ball. I think that's the key to success there. And finding the right situations for Nick Chubb.
No, I like that. They have a lot of tools there. Like, I love Duke in a PPR league, and all the stuff you mentioned, I completely agree with. So I'm hoping they figure it out because it's been a big waste of talent there this year. But that's the Browns being the Browns. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about another team that's in struggle mode, but they are making changes. They are your team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it is back to FITZMAGIC time, my friend.
Yes.
How do you feel about this?
I mean, I'm not quite sure if you saw my Halloween costume on Saturday night, but I actually dressed up as press conference Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Outstanding.
I love it for Deshaun Jackson. This poor guy. I mean, Jameis just will not give him the ball, and I do not blame him whatsoever for asking for a trade. I do not have a bad thing to say about Deshaun Jackson's outspokenness about wanting to be traded. I love Deshaun Jackson. I hope he wants to. I hope he wants to spend the rest of the season with Tampa, and I hope he enjoys it with Ryan Fitzpatrick under center. I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick is a guy who can give him the ball downfield. I think he's a guy that Fitzpatrick will be looking for. I love it for OJ Howard. OJ Howard, he did well with Jameis too. I mean, he's having a breakout season, but I mean, Tampa Bay, their quarterbacks, they're averaging the second most fantasy points in the league per game, whether it be Jameis or whether it be Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now this week, I mean, I can hardly feel comfortable calling Ryan Fitzpatrick a QB1 on the road in Carolina. That's a tough matchup. But if you're having bye week issues and you need someone off the waiver wire, I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't the worst gamble. I think it's great for the offense. I think Jameis Winston in general should be done in Tampa. I believe I told you that when you had me on last time. I'm just not a big Jameis fan after the last thing that happened. So, I think his days are numbered. There's always a possibility that he starts another game just to see what they have. But, I mean, we've seen this guy for 4 years. The results just haven't been there. I read something this morning talking about Matthew Stafford, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, all those guys who had turnover trouble early in their career, but by year 4, they had it figured out and they never looked back. This is Jameis's 4th year, and he threw a couple of possibly the worst interceptions.
Oh, they were so bad.
I mean, this guy just doesn't have a clue. He does not have a clue at all. I don't like it for Peyton Barber. Peyton Barber was unable to produce when Ryan Fitzpatrick was out on the field and through the first 3 weeks. This is obviously going to be a passing team. They're going to fall behind early against Carolina on Sunday, so it's going to be a lot of air raid. I like it for Chris Godwin. I mean, but you can't really – I mean, deeper leagues, you can put Chris Godwin in, but otherwise he's just a guy taking up a bench spot until something happens to either Mike Evans or Deshaun Jackson. So that's pretty much my take on it.
No, I like it. It's pretty wild. My numbers might be a little off, but they're close. I saw that Jameis is basically, I think he's had 71 turnovers in 43 career games. That is not good. That is not good at all.
The guy just doesn't have a clue. I mean, all the positivity and all that stuff. I mean, it's all show. He could be. I mean, I don't know the guy personally, but I mean, I mean, it was all a show.
Yep. And then, like you said, just a couple stats for people that I saved from Lord Reeves on Twitter, tweeted them out. Evans has 27 catches and 4 touchdowns. Djax 18 and 3 touchdowns. Godwin 14 and 3 touchdowns. And Howard 12 and 2 touchdowns. There was only 3 touchdowns combined with Jameis with those 4. So, yes, the production is much, much better with Brian Fitzpatrick there, as you'd imagine. So fire up your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I see, like you said, this week, maybe it's a little tricky because Carolina's respectable. But we've said that before with FitzMagic, and he still makes it happen. So we shall see.
Well, I mean, there should be garbage time because
big time.
Even historically, this Tampa defense hasn't been that bad. But even when they are a little bit better, Cam Newton just completely obliterates this team every time he plays them at home. He's going to run for 50 to 70 yards. He's going to throw for 250 to 300 yards, and he's going to score 3 times. I mean, I will put a guarantee on it. Close to a guarantee as you can.
I hope so, because he's a fantasy quarterback for me in a few weeks. So
I have Mez my QB1 this week, even over Mahomes.
I love it. I'll make sure to bring that up on my DFS show tomorrow night.
Yeah, you bring it up on Old Takes Exposed too when it doesn't happen.
All right, let's talk Miami Dolphins real quick. Kenyon Drake, he's put together like 3 straight really good weeks because they finally decided to give him the football. And then Devante Parker finally gets to play last week because the Dolphins didn't have anybody else to use. And I've been saying all along, his talent is there. Just play the damn guy. And he produced very, very well against Houston. Now, that could be a week-to-week thing with Osweiler at the helm. But are you buying into Kenyon Drake and Devante Parker being fantasy relevant the rest of the way?
I mean, honestly, shout out to Adam Gase for not giving up on the kid after he fumbled at the 1-yard line against Chicago. I mean, there's coaches that could be frustrated with it, but he, you're on the brink of victory, and then he fumbles at the 1-yard line, and you could tell his heart fell out of his body when he was on the sideline. I mean, he was probably crying. Yep. But anyways, put him out in the next drive, and he just had a monster drive, and he hasn't looked back since. So good job, Gase, for being a true leader. Good job for Kenyon Drake for bouncing back. I like Frank Gore this week too. I think he can this is a guy that's getting 12 to 15 touches a game, and I think this could be his second 100-yard game of the season. I'm not too impressed with the New York Jets. Jordan Howard did it against them last week. I think this could be a little Kenyon Drake plays the Tariq Cohen role. Frank Gore plays the Jordan Howard role, and they try and run the ball down their throat. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, but I like both running backs. And was it Devante Parker that you asked about?
Yes, Devante Parker.
I don't know. I mean, this is I've watched this guy for 3 years, and I've loved him at times. I've hated him at times. I would say from a fantasy standpoint for the next couple of weeks while Kenny Stills is out, I'm totally playing this guy in DFS because I'm sure he's probably pretty cheap. The Dolphins flat out don't like him, but I mean, all they have is Jakeem Grant. And, Devante Parker, he played really good last week. 45 of those yards shouldn't have happened. I don't know if you saw the play where I think Jakeem Grant got crunched between 2 people and the ball flew up in the air and flew right into Devante Parker's hands. So he got a 45-yard reception out of that. But other than that,
right place, right time.
Yeah, he was. And I mean, he got 40 yards out of it, but as far as how he looked over the middle, I mean, he looked confident. He was coming down with the ball. He wasn't getting the ball knocked out of his hands by safeties. He looked like the alpha receiver that Miami wanted to draft. But I mean, the guy is so week to week. I'd like to see it a couple more weeks.
Don't blame me at all. In that same matchup on Thursday night, Lamar Miller, back-to-back, really, really good weeks. I know when we talked earlier this year, we were talking about, late second round, early third round kind of guys. Lamar Miller was on the list of guys we talked about. When you are looking at what he's done recently, do you think he's back being that every week, back-end RB1, RB2 type guy?
I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that I feel a lot better about him. He's a guy that I avoided in drafts altogether for guys like Peyton Barber, who I eventually dropped. We can't all be perfect. I think the good thing is that this offensive line can continue to improve. They can continue to learn how to make holes for him, and I think that's what's happening because he hasn't had a good offensive line in Houston. So I think it's just taken an excessively long time for things to get figured out for him. He's getting goal line touches. He's got touchdowns the last couple games. I think this is a guy that you can't leave sitting on your bench. And he's just flat out looked better, and he can't help but be happy for the guy. Let's just hope that offensive line can keep Deshaun Watson on his feet too.
Yeah, no, that's the most important part. Now let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. Doug Baldwin's a week-to-week question mark. You got David Moore. All he does is catch touchdowns. He's like this year's Will Fuller. Tyler Lockett's been actually pretty good. But the biggest question I have is, can we trust this passing game when Russell Wilson's throwing the ball like give or take 20 times a game? Like literally, he's not going more than 25 a game. So the volume isn't there. And they got like 4 receivers involved here with an occasional, like I touted Ed Dixon last week as an athletic tight end. There's a lot of weapons.
Yeah, he got a touchdown.
Lot of production. Yeah,
you got a touchdown out of it.
Yeah, I did. So what do you think about the Seattle passing game? How do you approach it from a fantasy perspective?
I was big on Doug Baldwin this offseason. I thought there was a lot of red zone targets to be had. I think if he didn't get hurt at the beginning of the year, I think this was probably a monster season for him. I think with him not being healthy and with this new cast of characters that Russell Wilson is throwing to outside of Tyler Lockett, who he's familiar with, I think Tyler Lockett is the only one that I'd want to start, and that's just playing the matchups as well. It's not necessarily. I think you're in trouble if you're in a 12-team league and you're having to start Tyler Lockett every week. But yeah, I mean, Tyler Lockett, he's stepped up in the red zone. He's making touchdown catches. He's stretching the field for them. I mean, he's really came a long way. Shout out to Matt Harmon for that call because he was all over him this offseason. I mean, Doug Baldwin, all of his production out of his 6-catch, 90-some yard game was in the fourth quarter. I mean, the guy he's just kind of like, he's such a wild card this year. He's not healthy.
Nope, not at all.
It's a shame. It's a shame. So, I mean, the only guy that I really want to roster at this point is Tyler Lockett.
Right, let's talk about 2 young running backs, rookie running backs that have really burst on the scene of late. Kerryon Johnson for the Lions. Last 2 weeks been phenomenal. Key is Theo Riddick was on, but hopefully eventually something will seep in these guys' brains that he's very, very good. And we got Phillip Lindsay for Detroit. Again, Freeman was out of the way this past week, but he's been really, really good for Denver. Rest of the way, which one would you rather have, Kerryon Johnson or Phillip Lindsay?
I think it's Phillip Lindsay quite easily for me because he just has one less running back to worry about. Theo Riddick is going to get touches when he's healthy, and LeGarrette Blount is going to get touches when he's healthy, and a lot of those touches will be in the red zone. Now, that's not saying that Kerryon Johnson won't get red zone touches because he is, but LeGarrette Blount is definitely going to be in the mix if Kerryon Johnson's out there for 5, 6, 7 straight plays in a row. LeGarrette Blount's going to get those carries. Royce Freeman he looked so good in the preseason. It's just not panning out for him as this season. I think he's a very talented back, and I think his detriment was just how good Phillip Lindsay is. Never really Freeman just never got a chance to find a rhythm, really, because if he's getting stuff for 2-yard carries to bring Phillip Lindsay out, he'll carry it for 7 yards. He's helpful in the passing game. But yeah, Phillip Lindsay he's just a starting running back in this league. He can do it in the red zone. He can do it between the 20s. He can do it through the air. He's an all-around back. I'm curious as let's say the season's over. Knowing what you know now, what do you think next year for Phillip Lindsay? Are you thinking a 4th, 5th rounder or even higher?
Yeah, based on who they still have there, because I still get terrified when they take a guy so early like Royce Freeman. They don't want to keep him active, and maybe in off season we'll get something going there. But what Lindsay's done so far, I'd say 4th round's pretty good. Yeah, I could see 4th round, especially kind of the way the draft went this year, the depth at positions now. I could say 4th round for sure.
Yeah, I mean he's an every week starter.
Yep. And
Kerryon Johnson, I mean, you're nervous putting him in your lineup when you see Theo Riddick is active. And
let me ask. Blunt's not there next year. Where do you take Kerryon Johnson?
Oh my gosh, I think 2nd or 3rd round. I mean,
I agree. He's that good. It's a shame he's getting blocked like this.
Yeah, I think the guy has 200-yard games so far this year, and Detroit hadn't had one in years. I mean, the guy he's the best running. Probably, I don't know if I want to be this hot takey, but I want to say, like, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. I think he's probably the best running back they've had since Barry Sanders. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head.
The only one that comes off the top of my head that could challenge him, but I agree with you, would be Reggie Bush.
But he was he wasn't an every down back for him.
Yeah, that's why I said it's the closest thing. So yeah, I think you might be right there. That's interesting. Very interesting. I like it. Let's talk Indianapolis Colts real quick. They activated a player, and in week 7, he didn't get any targets, nothing. Then he goes to Oakland. He gets 7 targets, 6 catches, 52 yards. His name is Dontrelle Inman. Mm-hmm. What are we doing, Matt? What are we doing?
I just putting T.Y. Hilton in my lineup and praying. I mean, they're going to use T.Y. Hilton. I mean, they have the thing with Dontrelle Inman and Charles Rogers and Grant. And these guys are all kind of the same tier, and then you have T.Y. Hilton. So, I mean, you got 3 guys that are game plan guys. Which one of those 3 do you start from week to week basics? I mean, he's got to keep rolling with T.Y. Hilton. He'll get it together. He'll have his big 200-yard 2-touchdown game sometime this year. But I can't see myself picking up Dontrelle Inman and being like, I know what week I'm going to start this guy. I know what matchup I like. Like, no, you don't know. Yeah. The coaching staff in Indianapolis doesn't even know.
So true.
I mean, if Inman historically was known for big games, then yeah. But I mean, he's had a couple flashes in the past couple years, but he's not a guy that I'm really excited to. I think I'm even more excited probably to add Devante Parker than him.
That says it all for you, folks. That says it all for you right there. Let's talk about another running back. He should have been picked up in all leagues last week, but for some reason he's out there. He's the every down guy in Oakland right now, and it was proven. We know that John Gruden likes his every down back, and Doug Martin, 13 for 72, even got 2 catches for 17 yards. So 15 touches. Jalen Richard still got his, but it was more the game flow dictated more of a passing game. So there's other games that might go Doug Martin's way. What's your thoughts on Doug Martin? Because he actually looks really good last week.
He did look really good for a little while, and then he fumbled in a key moment in the second half. And I mean, it was just flashbacks to Tampa. It's just
and he couldn't score goal to go situations either.
Yep. Yeah, he's not the answer long term. I I don't think he's going to score you more than 8 to 9 fantasy points in standard leagues per week. He's obviously a guy that needs to be rostered because he's an every down back. I don't think Doug Martin's anything more than a bye week fill-in, and I'd rather have the pass catcher. I'd rather have Richard.
Okay, I agree with you there. Sticking in Oakland, though, a guy that was like similar to Inman. He was active in week 2 and week 3, no targets. He wasn't active any other week this season except last week when he got four targets, 3 catches, 39 yards, a touchdown. Some say he took the Amari Cooper role. Others say Martavius Bryant did because he didn't get any catches. You can decide on your own. But what's your thoughts on Brandon Lafell right now, who we've seen be viable when he was in New England, and maybe this is a new chance?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be someone, right?
I agree.
I think he's rosterable. I absolutely do. He's done it before. Fresh starts. You never know. He's not the top of my waiver wire list. I'd say probably, in the 5th or 6th range. If you're sitting in the back of priorities, I think he's worth a shot in the dark, but he's not someone I'd rather pick up over the DJ Moores and the Kiki Kutis and all those guys that are sitting towards the top of the waiver wire this week. But yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for the guy. I think a couple more weeks like this could be up his sleeve this season. So I'm happy.
I like that, and I'm glad you mentioned DJ Moore. I think he's going to slide in and have a big second half of the season here. So good mention there. Let's talk Green Bay Packers real quick. We already mentioned Tymont's gone. Aaron Jones, he got the low this last week, 12 carries, only the second time this year. He's had double-digit carries. He had 2 catches as well, so 14 touches in a game that was back and forth in the second half against the Rams. It looks like it's his role, but we said that before. Are we confident in Aaron Jones yet?
Yeah, I'm confident. I'm confident in Aaron Jones. Jamal Williams kind of stole a touchdown last week, and that's okay. I mean, Ty Montgomery's kind of out of the picture. I'd be very surprised if there's a game this season that Aaron Jones doesn't see a double-digit carries. I think your opportunity to buy low on him has gone and passed. You watch the 2 running backs play in Green Bay, and it's very apparent which one has the talent, which one can bust the big run while also not taking it 3 times to punch it in from the 1-yard line. I mean, he's a real deal running back. I'm starting Aaron Jones every week in 10-team leagues and up.
All right, sticking in Green Bay, Martez Valdez-Scantling, he's really paid off the last three games. 10 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets. He scored touchdowns in 2 of 3, and he outsnapped the snot out of Cobb this last week and even out of Allison. So he was the number 2 guy this past weekend. How are we looking at the Green Bay receiving situation? Because we know Devante's got his spot. Yeah. But the other guys with Cobb, Allison, and now Scantling, there's a little bit of a conundrum there. Yeah,
it's really hard to gauge. But all you can go by really is the targets and what you see. And Scantling had the nice touchdown against LA. He got the target share. He got the second highest target share as far as the Green Bay receivers go. I mean, you can only go off of what you see, and what you see is Scantling as the number 2 wide receiver right now. Geronimo Allison, I'd rather have him than Randall Cobb. I didn't draft Randall Cobb anywhere this year. I just wasn't sold on him. The guy can't stay healthy, and I think that's going to be the issue for him going forward. I don't want anything to do with Randall Cobb, and I'd rather have Scantling than Allison. So
I like it. I like it a lot. So it's good to know because I have Allison in one league and I have MVS on the waiver wire, and I did put a move in for that about a half hour before we started recording. So good to know I'm not the only one thinking that direction.
Well, you just got to go where the targets are.
Exactly. I completely agree. Like to me, the way it looks like, in a PPR league, you get the targets with MVS. If it was standard, I'd almost kind of, okay, if you want to roll the dice with an Allison, he's got like the deep play threat. But if he's not on the field, which is starting to happen, it's a little different now. So,
and I mean, the guy cleared. I think Allison was concussion protocol. Oh, he had something else going on too, didn't he?
He had a couple of things. Him and Cobb. That's why I want to see maybe one more week. But MVS has proven he can hold the role. So I like what I've seen there, and they like him. So it's good. Let's talk about the other side in that game, the way it ended in a crazy fashion. I want to give you a second to vent, as I saw you had Rams minus 7.5. Todd Gurley, many fantasy owners, many bettors were not happy when he stopped at the 2. To be fair, it's a smart play. At the same time, you can argue they put them up 2 scores if they scored. Lots of ways to go about it. To me, these extra points aren't automatic these days, so it might not have been 2 scores. But I'll give you your floor here on Todd Gurley stopping early.
Okay, I just like to be as entertaining as possible when I'm tweeting or when I'm writing an article. I like to play the entertainment value a little bit. Obviously, you go down, you win the game. I mean, you do not give a shit. Crap, I don't know if I can cuss on here.
No, feel free, let it fly.
Okay, you don't give a shit about Vegas. You don't give a shit about fantasy football when you're out there with a bunch of 250, 300-pound dudes chasing you down. I mean, you're trying to win football games. I mean, you hear it all the time. Winning a professional football game is one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing to do in sports, because, I mean, there's just so much that goes into it. So you want to secure that win. It's absolutely the right move. And it's good to see someone that they invested so much money in realize that and just go down and get the win for the team. But, I lost a little money on that, but, I mean, it's if you can't handle a tough loss, you shouldn't be gambling.
That is the correct answer right there. Let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals. Yes, they still only scored 18 points. It wasn't flashy. But we really got to look at DJ. Much better usage, especially in the first half before he got concussed and somehow came back in on the final drive when they needed him the most. And then Larry Fitzgerald got the ball a lot more often. The ball was getting flown around a lot more. There was a lot to like if you watched the game, and sadly I had to watch a lot of it. Byron Leftwhich first game to me left a good impression. What were your thoughts as a not a Niners fan or anything?
As far as the Niners or the Cardinals?
Cardinals, sorry.
Cardinals. No, that's okay. So I liked that Larry Fitzgerald is becoming more involved. That's a guy that I really liked coming into this season. I think that you're not going to win if you're not giving Larry Fitzgerald 7 to 10 targets a game. He's solid. He doesn't drop anything. He's always at the sticks. He knows where he's at on the field. He's going to get you first down. It's going to keep the ball moving. I like that Christian Kirk continues to see targets. I like that he had the touchdown at the end of the game to win the game. I think that is a fixture in this organization that they need to take care of. They need to give him as many opportunities as possible because Larry Fitzgerald's not going to be around there forever. David Johnson, man, I'm worried. Yep. I don't know what to do. David Johnson is a guy that I had in the 1-2 range. He was a tier 1 running back for me. I liked him more than Le'Veon Bell this year, which, I mean, he's obviously getting more fantasy points. But, I mean, once week 11 rolls around, who are you going to want more, Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson at this point? Yep. I'm worried. I don't know other way to put it. I mean, they give him the ball, he runs it for 3 yards. They throw a little swing pass. He's not breaking the big run. It's just not happening this year, and they got to figure it out in the play calling, or he has to figure it out. I mean, there's a major problem.
Yeah, I liked in the first half he already had more receiving yards and targets in the first half than in any game total throughout the season. So I'm hoping that's a sign of things to come. But yeah, we'll see.
He's getting enough points to be a starter, but
that's the thing. But not where you drafted him.
Exactly. So I mean, there's no way around it. There's no way to pat an owner on the back and be like, oh man, he'll get it next week. You don't know. I don't know. Like it hasn't happened yet.
And the weird thing is a lot of people don't agree, but some do. I actually don't mind Josh Rosen. I think he's looked good. He's made a lot of rookie mistakes, but I do kind of like the week-to-week development. Yes, I like the week-to-week developments that I see out of him out there.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold doesn't have the same weapons as he has. If you want to, I mean, Christian Kirk. I love Christian Kirk. I think he's a great receiver.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's absolutely awesome. But, all right, final question here. We're going to move to the New England Patriots. Okay, when we thought things were all right again, Josh Gordon goes and almost misses the transportation from New England to Buffalo, and he got to sit out for like a drive or two. How concerned are you with this? Because I really thought things were good to go, and now if this is already happening, 4 weeks into New England, I got to be a little concerned.
So I think your guest from last week, Seth Keith, he was am I saying that right?
Seth Klein,
sorry. He said that he was a former addict and now he's a drug counselor. You probably saw this tweet too, that what Josh Gordon is doing now is addict behavior. And I luckily enough, thank the stars, I'm not someone who struggles with that kind of stuff. So I just got to go with what I hear with people who've done personal or who've had personal experience with it. So when you hear something like that from people who know what he's going through, it is very worrisome. Any news that you hear about Josh Gordon, you're holding your breath. It is. It's not good. I'm not in total panic mode. Like, I'm not trying to sell him. I'm thinking of this guy. Like, he's someone I've been rooting for the past 3-4 years since he's been having this trouble. Never someone that I've cussed out because I drafted him, or it's a human being thing. You want him to do well, but yeah, I'm worried. But if he is able to stay on the field, this guy's only been with New England for 3-4 weeks. He's had a 100-yard game in Chicago. So if he's able to stay on the field, I think good things are coming, but it's just a matter of keeping his nose clean, keeping his head strong, and keeping his body healthy.
Yeah, I mentioned it on a previous show, and like you said, Seth tweeted that out, and Justin Mason, he's a great guy in the community, and I've been on his show a few times. He's been on mine. He's a big-time recovering addict, and he works. That's his job also, is he works with addicts now. And he's talked about it on a lot of his shows about, this is what addicts do, and there's all these things about it, and it's so true. And the one thing that I've told before is my mom worked for the Sacramento Kings when she was up in that area as a payroll person. And when they got run our test, the Kings literally hired 2 to 3 guys to babysit him every day, literally go everywhere with him. They lived in the house that the Kings helped provide. They made sure he woke up, got to practice. Like, I don't know what the Patriots are doing. Maybe they are, and it still fell through the cracks. I don't know. But, I'm not saying that's what you have to do for a guy because everyone's a grown adult. Might be something worth thinking about because obviously they're clean. They're getting clean. But like you said, they have behaviors, and it's a shame. So, yeah, I don't want to go too more deep into it. But, yeah.
Well, I mean, I just want to make another point. So if you're Josh Gordon or you're this coaching staff, the reports come out that you're going to be sitting out the first quarter as punishment for being late to a meeting, being late for a team flight, film session, what have you. But you end up playing in the first quarter. That's so. What kind of message are you sending to Josh Gordon? What kind of message are you sending to the rest of your team? I mean, it's so Belichick-y to do, to kind of use that as a strategy kind of thing, where you don't think you're going to have to deal with Josh Gordon, but you end up playing with him. But I mean, this isn't something that you want to mess around with. So I'm kind of disappointed the Patriots didn't sit him the first quarter.
No, that's such a very, very good point. Like the fact I don't think he missed the whole drive. Now I think about it.
They had him right out there.
Yeah, it's like you almost need to just say, you know what, you're missing the whole game.
Yeah,
like they're going to beat the Bills anyways. Let's just be honest about it.
Yeah,
it was a lot closer than it should have been. They literally should have said, you know what, you're late, stay in New England.
Yeah, you don't have to rub his nose in it. I mean, you just be like, this is the quote unquote Patriot way. You're on this team. We traded for you. We have these expectations. You're not going to play today. We'll see you next week.
Yep. So interesting. I hope for the best. I really do, because he's a super talented guy, and more importantly, just for his own health and well-being.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Let's hope for the best. Let's have a little fun here to spice it up towards the end.
Yeah.
And this could be, like I told you before, a little quick hitters, just because we are basically at the midway point of the fantasy football season for the most part. So who is your biggest surprise at quarterback? And I'm going to preface this by saying outside of Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, I can't say that.
Yeah, outside of Pat Mahomes, who is your biggest surprise at quarterback this year?
Mitch Trubisky. I thought the game against Tampa was a fluke because of how bad Tampa's secondary is, and they just weren't able to generate a pass rush in Chicago. He had all the time in the world. But what is most surprising to me about Mitch Trubisky is the way that Daniel Nagy's using his legs on third downs. Getting not sure if you're aware of this, but when your quarterback gets 50 rushing yards a game, that's 5 extra fantasy points for
Big
you.
Time. He's basically the cheap Cam Newton right now.
Yeah, exactly. He's a poor man's Cam Newton. So he's definitely my surprise for quarterback.
All right, let's go to the running back position. Obviously Todd Gurley is not a surprise. I wouldn't say Saquon Barkley's a surprise. Outside of James Conner, who was the biggest surprise for you at the running back position?
Actually, I do not have any shares. I'm in 11 leagues. I do not have any shares of Kareem Hunt. He's just a guy that I want to avoid this season. I looked like I was right the first 3 weeks. But the way that this offense hums along, of course he's going to get involved. And this past month, he's just been an absolute monster. I mean, he looks like the absolute real deal again. Anyone on this offense, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, but especially Kareem Hunt, that run that he had on the little shovel pass last week, it was one of the 3 best runs I've seen this season. The guy's automatic. On the goal line. He's a first round pick for years to come, and I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get any of him this year.
And I really like him this week against Cleveland, because Tyreek is banged up. If he doesn't play this week, Watkins is fine. Kelce will get his, but I think Hunt against that Cleveland defense can be really, really nice.
You know what? I hate to say it because I am a Tyreek Hill owner in one of the leagues, in my home league that I really care about. The fastest guy in the league with the groin injury is not a good thing.
No. Let him get healthy. Let him rest and get healthy, because you're going to make the playoffs, but you need a full healthy roster for that.
If I had a guess right now on Tuesday before the practice week started, by the time this comes out, I could be completely wrong. He could be out there on a full basis. But if I had to guess right now at 6:30 Central on Tuesday, I would say he's not playing on Sunday.
I think you're correct. Let's go to the wide receiver position. There's a ton of different options here. Who is your biggest surprise at the wide receiver position?
This is a really tough question. See, I went negative last time, so I kind of want to go positive here. But just right off the top of my head, and maybe I'll think of a guy positively while I'm saying my negative one, or who I was down on. I was down on Mike Evans. I thought there were a lot of weapons in Tampa. There are a lot of weapons in Tampa, but when the guy just goes out there and gets 7 catches for 170 yards, and on a weekly basis, he's not hurting you as he has in years past. Mike Evans is a wide receiver 1 again, and I wasn't totally sold on it. I think we've seen it in the past with Julio Jones, but him too, just not being able to score a touchdown to this point. I think that is that's just that's insane to me that you have one of the 3 best receivers in the game and he hasn't scored yet. But on the positive side, do you have one while I think of it?
Well, to me, the one I was not high on, so I guess it's negative in a way, but I love watching him, and I'm glad I'm wrong, is Juju. Juju, I didn't think he'd be this good. He's been very, very good.
Yeah. Juju was a guy off the top of my head. Sammy Watkins. When I wrote in the fantasy, I wrote my bust for Fantasy Pros was actually Tyreek Hill. And it wasn't necessarily that I thought he was a bust. I just thought I didn't like him at his value at that point. But the guy leads the league in touchdowns at this point, as far as wide receivers go. I didn't know what to expect with the Chiefs offense. You could go down the whole theme of your question, and you can just name Chiefs. It's insane. Daniel Nagy's gone, so what's this offense going to look like? And there's just so much movement every snap. I mean, you have no idea who the ball is going to. I mean, you see Tyreek Hill come across the line, and you don't know if they're going to fake it to him or if they're going to give it to Kareem Hunt or if it's just going to be a fake and they're going to hit Travis Kelce 15 yards over the field. I mean, it's incredible to see.
And one other big surprise, a wide receiver for me, and it's a shame he got hurt now. Will Fuller, I thought had no chance to be this good. I didn't think he's going to be that good.
Oh my gosh, he was so good last Thursday. It's a shame. And when it's a non-contact injury like that, I mean, I was watching it live and it was bad. Going back to running back, it's actually a guy that I did draft in a dynasty or in a rookie draft. I had the 3rd pick and I took him. It was Sony Michel. I took him the day that he had his knee trouble in training camp. I took him that morning. It was a slow draft. I took him at 8 a.m. He got hurt around 10 a.m. I am thoroughly impressed how stable this guy has been with his knee injury history. And the way that injury looked, that it wasn't a torn ACL, I mean, props to that doctor. I mean, he built a strong knee.
Yeah, that looked bad. And I'm hoping, he might be back this week for crying out loud. So it's going to be crazy.
So I am looking forward to seeing Sony Michel to continue to do big things because he's a dynamic runner.
With you there. All right, let's go to the tight end position, which is just a mess this year. But to show you how much of a mess it is, Rob Gronkowski in a 6-point touchdown PPR league is the 9th tight end right now.
Yeah.
So life is bad outside of Ertz and Kelce. What's your surprise here?
Okay, I have 2 surprises. And I hate to stick with the same team that I went with for wide receiver, but I mentioned him earlier in the podcast, OJ Howard. I'm impressed with. I mean, what can you do with tight ends? I mean, you can say Eric Ebron. You can say Eric Ebron, but you didn't know Jack Doyle was going to be hurt for half the year. So I mean, it wouldn't be a surprise if you knew that. OJ Howard. Cameron Brate is just not a part of this offense at all. It's OJ Howard, and he's getting looks in the red zone. He is a fixture in the middle of the field. He's playing much better as a receiving tight end than he was last year, although he didn't get the opportunities. I am surprised that David Njoku hasn't done more. He's a guy that I was very high on. He's a guy that I have a lot of shares of. But outside of, he was shut out this past week, but outside of the 2 previous weeks, he hasn't done anything. And I mean, in standard scoring, his 2 best games are like 11 and 12-point games. I mean, and this is a guy that I probably had in my top 5 tight ends for the season, top 7.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, I think Austin Hooper would be another one for me. I like to be good, not this good, though. This is definitely darn impressive. All right. We could obviously say a fantasy MVP so far would be an easy draft pick. And Pat Mahomes, we're not going to – if you need to use him, I'll let you have him. But the rule is a mid to late round draft pick that's like one of those difference makers for a team. Who would be a guy for you?
Okay. Yeah. Late round guy.
I'll give you mine while you think.
James White. It's James White.
Yep. That's exactly what I was going to say. He just steals the show right there.
Yeah. I mean, even though he's a PPR back, I mean, he's killing it in standard too. I mean, he's you're putting him in your lineup and you're thinking you're going to get a touchdown. You're thinking you're going to get 70, 80 all-purpose yards at the minimum. Tariq Cohen is another one. Ever since week 4, I mean, he's been a top. I think he's a top 4 scorer in PPR though over the last 5 weeks. So yeah. Tariq Cohen, James White. I mean, it's the year of the third down back or the slot receiver back. So let's get Duke Johnson going already.
There you go. We've come full circle. Full circle here to wrap up the pod. Well, it's like you've done this before. With that being said, Matt, I want everybody to know where they can find you and what you got coming up over at Razzball.
Well, you can find me at Razzball_MB on Twitter. You can find me at football.razzball.com. I will have my rankings coming up on Wednesday. This will be out Wednesday morning, I'm sure. So my rankings will be out by the time that this comes out. I'm doing something special for my rankings this week, something more than I usually do. I'm going to have 1,000 to 1,500 words on the trade deadline. I'm just going to go over kind of what we did on this podcast. I'm just going to go over each individual player that the trade deadline affects. And if you listen to this podcast, it'll be a lot of the same, but maybe there'll be something a little different in there for you. But yeah, you can check out my Fantasy Pros rankings if that's not what you're interested in. And every Sunday, I answer questions on Razzball.com. I answer your lineup questions. And Monday morning, I got kind of my Peter King-ish column that comes out every Monday morning. Me and Rudy do a podcast every now and then on Thursdays, just depending on what we got going on. We both got busy lives, but we might be back this week. So yeah, I mean, busy being an editor.
Yeah, you're a busy man over there these days, and Razzball is one of my a lot of my buddies have gone over that direction, so I like what's going on over there at Razzball.com. A lot of good stuff there at that site. And Rudy's a good dude, Gray's a good dude. They're all good people. So
yeah, we definitely appreciate you over there. I mean, you help us out by promoting our stuff, and we hope we do the same for you. So
yeah, no, all day. And like you said, you can go on the front of the Sports Degens website. It's got all the links to the depth charts on Razzball we got. And every page where there's a player mentioned, it links to the Razzball player info. So go check it all out. But most importantly, go check him out on Twitter at Razzball_NB. Matt is a good follow, a good guy. And it's not always football all the time. He's a lot of fun. So go check out Matt. And thanks for joining me this week, man. Had a lot of fun as usual.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, we'll do this again sometime. Everybody, this was Bench with Bubba, episode 129, talking a lot of fantasy football, a lot. So go check it all out, and we'll catch you guys next time.